They were laughing at her, mocking her, pointing at her clothes. An old woman, standing in a boutique, wearing nothing but rags. To them, she was nobody. Just another poor woman who wandered into the wrong place. A woman who didn't belong on those polished floors. They didn't lower their voices. They didn't care if she heard every word. Because why would they care? What could an old woman in rags possibly do to them? Here is what nobody in that boutique knew. They didn't know her name. They didn't know what she had survived. They didn't know the 20 years that brought her to that exact spot, on that exact day, pointing at that exact dress. And they had no idea, not the slightest idea, who her son was. Somewhere in that city, a man controlled everything. Streets, money, fear itself. People said his name in whispers and looked over their shoulders after they said it. That woman they were laughing at, she was his mother. And he was about to walk through that door. Before we go any further, if you're new here, welcome to Afro Mafia Romance Chronicles. If stories like this hit you the way they hit me, do one thing for me right now. Hit subscribe and tap that notification bell. Because what you're about to hear is going to break your heart before it puts it back together. And I don't want you to miss the next one. Now, let's go back to where it all began. A nurse placed a small bundle on Elise's chest. The pain disappeared. All of it. Gone in 1 second. Her arms were shaking. Her gown was soaked through. None of that mattered now. The baby was tiny. His fists were already clenched, like he had arrived ready to fight whatever was coming for him. Ben, Elise whispered. She hadn't planned the name. It just came out of her, like it had been living inside her the whole time, waiting. The baby blinked. Slow. Deliberate. For 1 second, it felt like he was looking right at her, like he already knew her voice. She laughed and cried at the same time. No husband sat beside her. No one held her hand through the pain. She didn't care. She had Ben. And right now, that was the whole world. But 3 years before this moment, Elise had been a wife, and her husband had a habit he could not break. Chukwuemeka never raised his voice. He never raised his hand. He raised other women instead, again and again, like a man switching seats on a bus. The first time Elise caught him, she forgave him. The second time, she warned him. The third time, she watched his face and saw something worse than guilt. She saw boredom. Like her pain was a conversation he was tired of having. 2 weeks later, divorce papers arrived at the door. She signed them in a daze. The apartment went quiet. He was gone. And that was when she realized she'd missed 2 periods. She called him. No answer. She called again. His new girlfriend picked up, cheerful, careless, and told her to stop harassing them. Elise set the phone down on the table. She didn't cry. Not yet. She found a 1-room apartment in a quiet part of Lagos. She packed what she could carry on her back. She found work at a fabric shop. 8 hours on her feet every day, her ankles swelling by sunset. When the money ran low, she boiled akara and ate it with water, and made sure there was always enough for the baby growing inside her. She sang to him at night, old Yoruba songs, the ones her grandmother used to sing, one hand on her belly, the window open, the city breathing outside, and somehow, she made it through. Ben arrived, and holding him, Elise understood something for the first time in her life. Love could be a reason to survive anything. The years that followed were small, but they were warm. Elise decorated the 1-room apartment with leftover fabric and pictures torn from magazines until the walls looked like something out of a dream instead of a struggle. She taught Ben to read before school could. She chased him across the compound when he scraped his knee, blowing air on the cut the way her own grandmother used to do for her. Ben grew curious. He asked questions about everything under the sun. He loved football. He loved the smell of frying plantain drifting through the window. He was terrified of cockroaches, and would rather die than admit it. He had one small habit. He tilted his head slightly when he was thinking hard about something. Just a small thing, but it was entirely his. By the time he turned 10, their life was small, but it was theirs, whole, complete. Then came the Tuesday that ended it. The afternoon was thick and slow. The way Lagos afternoons get sometimes, heavy with heat that makes even the dogs stop barking. Elise was sorting fabric orders on the floor of the apartment when she noticed the thread basket was empty. "Ben!" He came running in from outside, slippers slapping against the concrete, a plastic bottle still tucked under his arm from whatever game he'd been playing. "Go down to Mama BC's shop," Elise said. "Get me the red thread. The dark red, not the bright one. You know the one." "Yes, Mama." He was already moving toward the door. "Come straight back. Don't stop to play." He rolled his eyes, the way 10-year-olds do when their mothers worry too much. I know. He turned once at the gate. That gap-toothed grin, the one that could light up 3 streets at once. Then he was gone around the corner. She went back to her fabric. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. She walked to the gate and looked down the empty street. Something about the silence felt wrong. She told herself he was talking to a friend. She told herself Mama BC was telling him stories, the way old women do. She went back inside and turned on the radio. All residents are advised to remain indoors. A violent confrontation between rival criminal organizations broke out near Alamosho Market Junction. Multiple casualties reported. Do not go outside. Repeat, do not go outside. The fabric fell out of her hands. She was out the door before the sentence finished. She ran. Not just with her legs, with everything she had in her body. She screamed his name down every street. "Ben! Benjamin! Where are you?" She searched every alley, every doorway, every space a small body could hide. Nothing. She ran to the police station, burst through the door with her wrapper half undone, her voice cracking on every word. "My son is missing. There was shooting. He's 10 years old. Please." The officer behind the desk looked up, picked up a pen. "Madam, how long has he been gone?" "Over an hour." The radio said, "Policy requires 24 hours before we can file a report." Elise stared at him. "He's 10. There was gunfire on that street." "Come back tomorrow," the officer said. "If you haven't found him." Something closed inside her in that moment. A door that would never fully open again. She turned. She walked back into the street, and she searched until her legs gave out under her. She got up. She searched again. She did not find her son that night. She did not find him the next day. For 20 years, she did not find him at all. What happened to Elise over those 20 years is not the kind of story anyone chooses. But it's the kind that shows you exactly what a person is made of. The first year, she walked every street in the neighborhood, every single day. She posted Ben's photo on every wall, every fence, every pole she could find. She went from hospital to hospital, begging to see records of unidentified boys brought in that day. She paid people who claimed they could find missing children. They took her money. They vanished. By the second year, she had sold everything. The fabric stock, her good wrapper, her mother's old jewelry, to pay a private investigator a church member recommended. He worked for 3 months. Then he sat across from her and said, in the flat voice of a man delivering a package he doesn't care about, that the boy had probably been caught in the crossfire. He placed a folder on the table between them. She walked home. She burned the folder in the compound that night, and she kept searching anyway. By the 5th year, the savings were gone. By the 8th year, so was the apartment. She moved from place to place. A friend's sofa, a crowded compound, a church shelter when there was nowhere else. She washed other people's clothes. She sold ground nuts by the roadside. Her hands grew rough and cracked. Her back curved from years of bending. But she still talked to Ben, not always out loud. Inside, in the quiet space behind her thoughts, the conversation never stopped. "You're okay. I know you're okay. Mama's still here." She would see a young man on the street, broad shoulders, easy walk, and her heart would slam against her ribs. She'd walk faster, get closer. The face would be wrong. She'd stop, breathe through it, keep moving. The mockery was the part that tested her the most. The neighbors called her the woman who lost her sense chasing a ghost child. Women at the communal tap whispered when she passed. Children mimicked her walk behind her back, hunched over, calling out, "Ben! Ben!" while their friends laughed. She wore whatever she could find. The good clothes were long gone. What remained got patched, and worn through again, and patched a second time. People looked through her on the street, like she was furniture. She heard the names. Craze woman, beggar, mad mother. She let the words fall off her. She kept her face smooth. She kept walking. But she never forgot one thing: the birthmark on Ben's left hand. A small, curved mark just below the wrist, shaped exactly like a crescent moon. She had kissed that mark 1,000 times. She would know it anywhere. On any man, in any city, in any lifetime. She would know it the day she died, if she had to. Here is what Elise never knew, not for 20 years. Ben had turned the corner with the red thread in his hand. The dark red, not the bright one. Just like Mama said, he was coming home. Then the world exploded. Men running, shouting. Sounds he had only heard on a neighbor's television before. He froze. A man running full speed slammed into him from the side, and didn't even see him. Ben spun, fell. Fire tore through his shoulder. The ground rushed up to meet him. He tried to say "Mama." The word never made it out. The thread was still in his hand. He held it like a rope. Like holding onto it could pull him back to the apartment. Back to safety. Back to the ordinary afternoon that had just been ripped away from him. Then everything went dark. The man who found him was not the kind of man you would want to find you. Shin Dae-jung had come to West Africa from Busan years before with almost nothing. He had built a network across Lagos that moved money and influence through the cracks no court could see into. People spoke of him in lowered voices. He was not sentimental. He did not stop for strangers. But when his car passed the wreckage of the gang fight, and one of his men spotted a small shape in the alley, a child, still breathing, something dark red clutched tight in one fist. Something shifted in Shin Dae-jung that he wouldn't have been able to explain to anyone. He had lost a son once. Long ago. In a way he never spoke about. "Get the doctor," he said. Not a suggestion. They took the boy to a private clinic. The bullet came out clean. The wound was cleaned and closed. 3 days later, Ben opened his eyes. He looked at the old man sitting in the chair beside the bed. "Where am I?" "Somewhere safe. I need to go home. My mother's waiting for me." Shin Dae-jung studied the boy's face. Clear eyes, strong jaw, the look of a child who had been properly loved. You could always tell. "What's your name?" The boy opened his mouth. Nothing came out. He searched inside himself the way you search a drawer for something you know belongs there, and found it empty. Completely empty. His hands gripped the bedsheet. I don't know my name." The doctor explained it later. Traumatic amnesia. The brain shutting doors to protect itself from what it couldn't process. Could come back in weeks. Could never come back at all. Shin Dae-jung stood at the window and watched the boy sit perfectly still, staring at the wall, searching a darkness he couldn't find his way out of. He thought about his own son, buried back in Busan. He walked back into the room. "Your name is Hyun-jae," he said. "You're with me now." Ben became Shin Hyun-jae. The old man raised him with precision. He taught him Korean. First the words, then the language underneath the words. The part only people who dream in it ever learn. He brought the boy to every meeting and let him watch from the corner. What did you notice? Who had the most to lose? The boy always knew the answers. He trained in combat, in strategy, in the quiet mathematics of power. And underneath all of it sat something nobody had taught him. A hunger. Not greed. Something deeper. Like part of him was always trying to earn back something he'd lost, though he couldn't remember what it was. By 20, he ran operations the old man had trusted to veterans twice his age. By 25, he'd doubled the network's reach. By 30, Shin Dae-jung died in his sleep. The quiet death of a man too formidable to confront even at the end. And the entire organization looked at Hyun-jae and saw the only possible heir. The streets gave him a new name. Hok Wangja, the Black Prince. A name that moved through Seoul like cold air before a storm. He had power, money, fear, respect, an empire built from 30 years of his own hands. He had everything. He remembered nothing of before, until the night the lock broke open. He was 30 years old when the dreams started. Small dreams. Ordinary ones. A room with colorful fabric on the walls. The smell of frying plantain. A woman singing, off-key, stubbornly off-key, while she stirred something on a stove. A pair of hands pressing gently on the top of his head. He woke from these dreams with a hollow space inside him he couldn't name. He told no one. Men like him didn't report dreams. Then one evening in his Gangnam penthouse, he was clearing old papers off his desk when something fell out of an envelope he had carried with him for 30 years and never once opened. A small roll of thread, dark red, worn, still wound on its cardboard spool. He picked it up, and something happened in his chest, like a key turning in a lock that had forgotten it was ever a lock. The dark red, not the bright one, you know the one. A woman's voice, low, warm, giving instructions. He sat very still. More came rushing in. A gate, plastic slippers on his own feet, the smell of rain, a wide gap-toothed grin, a woman watching him from a gate with eyes that held something he now recognized, unconditional love. The thing he'd been chasing in every cold deal and every hard-won victory for 30 years, without knowing he was chasing it. Come straight back. Don't stop to play. I know. I know. He sat at that desk for a long time. Then more memories arrived. The corner, the street, running feet, fire in his shoulder, red thread in his hand. He remembered everything. He called his best intelligence officer the next morning. A man who had found people across 15 years without ever failing once. I need you to find a woman, Hyunjae said. Elise Okafor. Logos. Late 50s, early 60s by now. Her son went missing 20 years ago near Alamosho Junction. The officer wrote without reacting. Find her. Whatever it takes. Nothing else matters until this is done. The search took 3 months. What came back was not what he'd hoped for. It was exactly what he'd feared. Elise Okafor was alive, 59 years old, no stable address, moving between a church shelter and a relative's house where she was tolerated, not welcomed, no income, wearing whatever she could find. 20 years searching for a son the world had called dead, and the world's verdict had never once convinced her. Hyunjae sat with the report for a long time. Then he did something none of his people had ever seen him do. He booked a personal flight, told no one why, said only that he'd be gone for 72 hours and that this was not a crisis. He flew to Lagos. He moved through the city the way powerful men learn to move through unfamiliar streets. Quiet, watching everything, giving nothing away. He saw her on a Tuesday morning near an open market. He almost didn't recognize her. Her wrapper had faded to a color that might once have been orange. Her blouse was mended at the elbow with thread that didn't quite match. She walked slowly, a small bag in one hand, the careful walk of a woman who had learned not to waste a single movement she didn't absolutely need. She stopped at a fabric stall, looked at a bolt of Ankara hanging in the display. For 1 second, her face opened completely. He saw the woman underneath all the years. The one who used to decorate a one-room apartment with scraps and magazine pictures and call it beautiful. Then she pulled her eyes away and kept walking. That one unguarded second broke something in him, so completely he had to put his hand against the nearest wall to stay standing. Mama, he followed at a distance. He needed one more day to be ready for what came next. The boutique was called Lumière, a French name in the middle of Lagos, which told you exactly who it thought its customers should be. Polished glass, mannequins under soft light, a place built to make ordinary people feel like they weren't enough. Elise stopped outside it. She wasn't planning to go in. She never planned to go in anymore, just resting her eyes on something beautiful before walking on, the way she'd learned to take small pleasures that cost nothing. But today, something in the window stopped her completely. A dress, deep blue, almost midnight blue, the exact color of the Lagos sky the night before Ben was born. The night she stood at her window and felt him move inside her sock for the first time. Hard, urgent, like he was saying, "I'm coming. Mama, I'm almost here. She had never seen that color again. Until now. She pushed the door. The bell chimed. The shop assistant behind the counter looked up. Pressed hair. Pressed uniform. Her eyes moved over Elise once, head to foot, and said nothing. But the judgment in her face was louder than words. Elise walked to the dress. Up close, the beadwork at the neckline caught the light and scattered it like water. "Excuse me, how much is this dress?" The counter girl glanced sideways at her colleague. Something passed between them, a shared, silent confirmation. "Madam," the counter girl said, and the word came out like an insult dressed as politeness. "This is a luxury boutique. I can see that. I'm asking the price. 150,000 naira. And then the other girl laughed. Small, controlled, aimed directly at Elise, and every person in the boutique heard it land. "Madam," the second girl put a hand on her hip. "You can see yourself, Abi? What exactly are you doing in here?" "I am." With all due respect, the tone made it clear there was none. "This isn't the kind of shop for people like," she waved one hand, taking in the worn wrapper, the patched blouse, the cracked slippers. "For all these kinds of people." The boutique had gone quiet. A woman near the changing room turned to look. A couple by the door exchanged a glance. Every eye in the room swung toward Elise like a searchlight. The second girl, warmed up now, kept going. "See your wrapper. See your slippers. You people come inside fine boutique to stress us. Go and beg outside before we call security." Laughter. Quiet. But everywhere. Elise stood completely still. She had survived worse than this. She knew how to keep her face smooth and let cruelty roll off her the way water rolls off stone. But she was 59, and she was tired. She started to turn, slow, dignified. The dignity nothing in 20 years had managed to take from her. A voice cut across the boutique like a blade laid flat on a table. "I will take the dress." Nobody had noticed him. He had been standing near the men's accessories for 8 minutes, half hidden behind a display rack, watching everything unfold from a distance. He stepped out now. Tall, dark coat, simple. He crossed the floor the way deep water moves. No hurry, no sound, completely unstoppable. He reached the dress, unhooked it from the rail in one smooth motion. He turned to the counter girl. Looked at her with the eyes of a man who had seen things far more frightening than a boutique assistant, and felt nothing close to fear looking at her now. "This dress, 150,000 naira." He set a card on the counter. "Black, matte. The kind shops like this saw maybe once a year, if they were lucky." The counter girl's face changed completely. All the mockery drained out of it in 1 second. What rushed in instead was alarm. The frantic recalculation of someone realizing too late exactly how badly they had miscalculated. "Of course, sir. Run it." He didn't look at her again. He turned and crossed the floor toward the old woman still standing near the window, her spine straight, her chin level, holding what was left of her composure with the same stubbornness that had carried her through 20 years of worse. He stopped in front of her. He held out the dress. "For you." She looked at the dress, at his face, African in its bones, marked by years lived somewhere else entirely. She didn't understand who he was, or why he was doing this. She looked at his hands holding the hanger, at his left wrist, a small curved mark, pale against dark skin, shaped exactly like a crescent moon. The world dropped away. She had kissed that mark 1,000 times. In a hospital room with rain on the windows, in a tiny apartment at 3 in the morning when he was sick. At a compound gate on ordinary mornings, before school. "My beautiful boy, you are so loved." Her legs stopped working. She grabbed the edge of the display table, needed something solid under her hand, because the floor no longer felt safe. Her mouth opened. The word came out on its own, rising from somewhere below speech, below thought, below every year of loss she'd survived. "Ben." A whisper. Then louder, as the rest of her caught up to what her hands already knew. "Benjamin." The man went completely still. Not the calculated stillness people in his world had learned to fear. A different kind. The stillness of a man whose world has just rearranged itself in 1 second, and who is trying to find his footing inside the new shape of it. He looked at her face. He looked at her hands gripping the table, knuckles white. He looked into her eyes and fell 30 years straight through them, past the penthouse, past the boardrooms, past every cold transaction and every hard-won victory, straight back to a one-room apartment with colorful fabric on the walls, the smell of plantain, a woman singing off-key at a stove, a small boy tilting his head, thinking, the safest he had ever been or would ever be again, Mama. It came out in Yoruba, not Korean, the first language, the one that had been sleeping underneath everything for 30 years, waiting for exactly this. Elise crossed the small distance between them. She put her arms around her son. He held her, his face pressed into the top of her head, eyes closed, his left hand, the one with the crescent moon, flat against her back, holding on like he needed to confirm she was real. The whole boutique had gone silent. Not a cough, not a footstep, nothing. The counter girl stood frozen, the black card still in her hand. The second girl had backed against the wall, looking like she wished it would swallow her whole. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. A mother and her son had found each other after 20 years, in the middle of the exact room where she had just been told she didn't belong. He kept her hands wrapped in both of his when she finally stopped shaking. How? Her voice was wrecked, and she didn't care. I searched everywhere. I know. I'll explain everything. Not here. He looked up. The boutique manager had appeared from the back room, already understanding that something enormous had just happened in his shop, and that the aftermath of it was about to land squarely on him. Hyunjae's voice came out flat, calm, loud enough for every person in the room to hear. Who is the manager here? Sir, I am. The man stepped forward, already recalculating. Your staff mocked this woman, called her names, told her to go beg outside, in front of your entire floor. The manager glanced at the second girl. Something crossed his face. Sir, I'm not interested in sincerely. Hyunjae took the card back from the counter girl's unresisting hand. I have 7 companies with active contracts in this city. 3 of them spend on luxury retail, corporate gifts, client events. Together, 12 million naira a year. The manager went pale. None of that spend comes through this door again, and I will tell every contact in my network to take their business elsewhere. A pause. That is the price of mocking my mother. Silence. He put his hand gently against Elise's back. Come, let's go. The hotel suite had marble floors and windows that ran from floor to ceiling, looking out over a Lagos evening, turning gold and then gray. Elise sat on the edge of a couch that felt too soft, too clean, holding the blue dress across her lap like she was afraid to let it go. Hyunjae sat across from her. He had taken off the dark overcoat. His sleeves were rolled to his forearm, and for the first time since she'd seen him in the boutique, he looked less like a man who controlled streets and more like a son sitting across from his mother, not knowing where to begin. I don't know what to ask first, she said. Her voice was still unsteady. There's too much. 20 years of too much. Ask anything, he said. I have nothing left to protect from you. She looked at his hands. At the crescent moon, she reached over and took his left hand in both of hers, the way she used to hold it crossing the road when he was small. Tell me what happened to you, she said. From the beginning. I need to hear all of it, even the parts that hurt. So he told her. He told her about the corner, and the running feet, and the fire that tore through his shoulder before he even understood what fire was. He told her about lying in the alley with the thread still locked in his fist, trying to say mama and not being able to make the word come out. Elise's hand tightened around his when he said that. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't look away. I held on to the thread, he said. I don't know why. I think some part of me thought if I just didn't let go of it, I'd find my way back to you. You did, she said quietly. It just took longer than either of us wanted. He told her about waking up in the clinic, about the old man in the chair, about reaching inside himself for his own name, and finding nothing there, just an empty space where a whole person used to live. That's the part I think about most, he said. Not the bullet, not the pain. The moment they asked my name, and I had nothing to give them. I have built an empire, Mama. I have stood in rooms where powerful men were afraid to look at me. And none of that ever frightened me the way that moment did. Not knowing who I was. Elise was quiet for a long moment. Her thumb moved slowly over the birthmark on his wrist, like she was making sure it was still real. "Do you want to know what frightened me the most?" she asked. He nodded. "It wasn't the missing," she said. "Missing. I could survive. I survived it for 20 years. The thing that frightened me, the thing that almost broke me, was the quiet." "The quiet?" "After they told me to come back in 24 hours. Her voice dropped, became something rawer. "I went back to that apartment that night, and it was so quiet, Ben. There was no one to call for. No one to cook for. I stood in the middle of that small room, and I realized I didn't know how to exist inside silence like that. I had built my whole life around the sound of your voice, and it was just gone." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, the same calloused hand that had washed other people's clothes for 20 years. "I want you to know something," she went on. "I never once let myself finish the thought that you were dead. Not once. Other people finished it for me. The investigator finished it. The neighbors finished it. Every time they called me a mad woman. But I never let the thought complete itself in my own head. I think some part of me knew. A mother knows." "How did you survive it?" he asked. 20 years of nobody believing you?" She smiled, and it was a tired smile, but it was real. "The same way you survived not knowing your own name," she said. "One day at a time. I would wake up and tell myself, today might be the day. And when it wasn't, I told myself the same thing the next morning. 20 years of mornings, Ben. That's all it was. One morning, repeated, until the right one finally came." He looked down at their joined hands. "I have to tell you something," he said. "And I need you to hear all of it before you say anything." She nodded. "There were years," he said slowly, "where I didn't think about you at all. Not because I didn't love you. I didn't know I had a you to love. I built a life on top of the place where you used to be, and for a long time I thought that life was the whole of who I was. I made decisions, hard decisions. Decisions a son of yours should probably be ashamed of." "What kind of decisions?" "The kind men like me make to stay alive in a world like mine," he said. "I am not a gentle man, Mama. I have not always been kind. People fear my name for reasons that are not always good reasons." Elise studied his face for a long time. Not with judgment, with the particular, searching patience of a mother trying to see past 30 years to find the boy underneath. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "The hard things?" "Some of them. Not all of them. I don't know which ones yet." "Then that's the truth," she said. "And I would rather have the truth from you than a comfortable lie. You are still my son. Whatever you became to survive, I understand survival, Ben. I had to become someone I never imagined to. A woman who begs with her eyes, even when her mouth refuses to. A woman who lets children mock her so they won't see her break. We both did what we had to do to still be standing today." He felt something crack open in his chest. Something that had been sealed since the night the lock first broke, and the memories came flooding back. "I used to dream about you," he admitted. "Before I remembered. I didn't know it was you. I just knew there was a woman in my dreams who sang off-key and made the worst songs sound like the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. I would wake up reaching for something I couldn't name. I sang to you every night," Elise said, her voice breaking now. "Finally, after holding so firm for so long, every single night since before you were even born. I told myself, wherever you are, if you can still hear anything at all, you'll hear me. I don't know if that's how it works. I don't know if love can travel that far. But I sang anyway, every night, for 20 years. It found me," he said. "It took 30 years, but it found me." She broke then. Not loudly, quietly, the way a woman cries who has spent 2 decades teaching herself not to. He moved from his chair and sat beside her on the couch, and she leaned into him the way she used to lean into him when he was small, and the world felt too big. Except now it was the other way around. Now she was small, and he was the one who could hold the world back from her. "I am sorry," he said into her hair. "I am sorry it took this long. I am sorry for every name they called you. I am sorry I wasn't there to stop a single one of them. You're here now," she said. "That undoes more than you think." "Does it undo 20 years?" She pulled back and looked at him. Really looked at him. The way only a mother can. Seeing both the man in front of her and the boy who used to tilt his head when he was thinking. No, she said honestly. Nothing undoes 20 years. I lost things I will never get back. I lost the chance to watch you become a teenager. I lost every birthday. I lost the version of myself who still believed the world was basically kind. That woman is gone, Ben. She didn't survive what I went through. He flinched, and she saw it, and she softened. But, she continued, taking his face in both her weathered hands, the way she used to when he was small and upset, I got a new version of myself instead. A stronger one. A woman who knows exactly what she's made of, because she had to find out the hard way. And today, that woman got her son back. So no, it doesn't undo the 20 years, but it makes every single one of them worth having survived. He closed his eyes and pressed his forehead gently against hers, the way he hadn't done since he was small enough for her to do it to him instead. 30 years from a frightened boy who couldn't remember his own name, he said quietly, to a man who finally remembers exactly who he is. You did that. Not the old man who raised me. Not the empire I built. You. The woman who never stopped believing, even when believing cost her everything. I didn't do anything but refuse to stop, Elise said. That's all faithfulness ever is, Ben. Refusing to stop. They sat like that for a long time, not speaking, the gold evening light sliding slowly into gray outside the window, the blue dress still folded across her lap, the crescent moon on his wrist resting beneath her open palm like something she was guarding. For the first time in 20 years, the silence in the room didn't frighten her at all. 3 days later, he flew her to Seoul. His penthouse sat on the 63rd floor. The city spread out below in every direction, lit up and endless. He brought her to the window to show her the view. She looked out for a long moment, then turned to him. Very nice, but where is the kitchen? You look thin. He laughed. A real one, from somewhere low in his chest, the kind that arrives without asking permission. He showed her the kitchen. She cooked obe ata and akara on marble countertops, sending someone across 3 different shops to find the right ingredients, and accepting no substitutes. He sat on the counter and watched her, just like he used to at age 7. Same movements. Same small frown when she tasted something and it wasn't right yet. Same stubborn humming, off-key, completely unaware she was doing it. His security team stood respectfully in the corridor, unsure of the protocol for this entirely new situation. Elise looked out at them. You people haven't eaten. Come. They looked at Hyun-jae. He nodded. 4 of the most feared men in Korea sat around a kitchen counter and ate food made by a woman in a blue dress, because nobody in their entire careers had ever simply looked at them and assumed they needed to be fed. One of them, a quiet, heavily built man named June, who had broken bones for a living and rarely spoke, finished his plate, set down his fork, and said almost shyly, "This is the best thing I have eaten since I left my own mother's house." Elise patted his shoulder like he was one of her own. "Then you will eat here often," she said. "A man like you should not look so sad over rice." Hyun-jae watched his most dangerous soldier blush like a teenager, and understood, fully, in that moment, what kind of weapon his mother truly was. That night, after the security team had gone and the penthouse had grown quiet, Hyun-jae found her standing at the window again, looking down at the city lights. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Too much light," she said. "In Lagos, the dark comes properly. Here, the night never finishes arriving." He stood beside her. "I keep thinking about something," she said. "All those years, I used to imagine what I would say to you if I found you. I had whole speeches, Ben. I rehearsed them in my head while I scrubbed other people's clothes. I was going to tell you how angry I was that you left without listening to me. I was going to tell you how the world treated me while you were gone. Are you still angry?" She considered this honestly, the way she considered everything. "No," she said finally. "I thought I would be, but standing here, looking at you, I'm not angry. I'm just grateful. Anger takes a kind of energy I don't think I have left in me anymore. I spent it all on hope instead. I have enough money to buy you anger for 1,000 years if you wanted it," he said, and she laughed. Really laughed. a sound he hadn't heard from her yet, bright and unguarded. "Keep your money," she said. "Just don't disappear on me again." "Never again," he said. "I promise you that." She turned from the window and studied his face in the low light of the penthouse. The sharp jaw, the watchful eyes, all the parts of him that the years and the old man and the empire had built. And underneath all of it, still visible if you knew where to look, the boy who used to tilt his head when he was thinking. "There he is," she said softly, almost to herself. "Who?" "My Ben," she said. "I can still see him. Underneath all of this, the suits, the company, the fear in other people's eyes, when they say your name. He's still in there. I was worried he wouldn't be." "He never left," Hyunjae said. "He was just waiting for you to come find him." He gave her a real house in Ikoyi. A garden. Furniture that felt like home instead of a showroom. The boutique's contracts evaporated within 3 weeks. Quietly, the way meaningful things move through Lagos business circles. No announcement, just consequence. He visited every 6 weeks, sometimes more. She learned 5 words of Korean and used all 5 with total confidence, in situations that only sometimes matched their meaning. His people loved her without reservation. And he learned, really learned, for the first time, what it meant to have somewhere waiting for him that wasn't headquarters or strategy or empire. Somewhere someone would ask if he was sleeping enough. Somewhere he wasn't Hook Wangja, feared across an entire country. Just Benjamin, the boy who was scared of cockroaches and never once admitted it. He had built an empire from nothing. He had become the most feared man in an entire country. And what he had been missing the whole time was sitting in a one-room apartment in Lagos. In a woman who refused, for 20 years, through every closed door and every cruel word, to stop believing. She found him in a boutique, in a blue dress the color of the sky, the night before he was born. Through a crescent moon, she had kissed 1,000 times. And the boutique that laughed at her learned something that day no staff manual ever teaches. You never know whose mother you're mocking. Benjamin came home, 30 years late, and she had been there the whole time, exactly where she said she'd be. If this story moved you the way it moved me, tell me in the comments. I want to know which part hit you the hardest. And if you want more stories like this one, stories about love that refuses to quit, about people who are underestimated until the moment they're not, make sure you're subscribed, because we post a new one every single week. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.